we've got to work faster. That we've got all the solutions we need to solve the climate crisis and most of the technologies we've got. And really, it's now just a question of political will. And I often think that the climate crisis is actually more of a leadership crisis. But the EnCO then, what happened then was that a few of us then went to the ESTA, the Energy Systems Technical Association. And through them, and with support from the Energy Institute in the UK, we formed EnCO, as I mentioned, energy conscious organisation. And the vision of that is essentially twofold. One is to try and get larger organisations who use a lot of energy to reduce their energy by engaging their employees. And the reason that we want to do that is that if you're on a journey of net zero, the very first thing you should do is reduce demand. And the fastest way to reduce demand is to engage your employees.
So we set up this group. It eventually became called Energy Conscious Organisation. There's jobs to be had from this for people. It's really interesting. You need some technical knowledge, but actually it's not just about the technical knowledge. But you need enough knowledge to be able to actually enthuse. So whether you're looking for a role in the energy field, or whether you're already in the energy field, but this is a bit that behavior change is a bit that you don't know enough about. So when you're talking to your customers, or if you're in a company, there's more that you need to understand, then please approach EnCO and there's it's all free. There's free. A lot of it's not just John Mulholland and myself. We're the front end in as much as we're running the courses.
But the issue we've got in the industry really is as part of the reason why I do what I do is that relatively very few organisations are really embracing sort of behaviour change. And, we know it's, half of the opportunity out there, but most organisations spend the majority of their time focusing on technology. So quite frankly, they're sort of missing out on the, on the opportunity, find quite frustrating. So, part of what I do, and it has been, to be honest, for the whole period I've been working with Discovery Mill, is collaborating on an industry level. So working with the likes of Jez and John, yourself, and really, trying to think that we can all do more as an industry. So, for me, the successes that I've had at Heathrow and other case studies like Vanderlander on the EnCO website have been down to those, energy sustainability champions.
Targets, and how did they achieve those targets?
Yeah, so what we would do in the early days, it was much harder when we didn't have good metering in place. So, for example, secondary schools would always usually have half-hourly metering, so you had good interval data. For primary schools, they'd be that bit smaller, so it was manual meter reads, that kind of thing. It was that we'd get the kids doing every week, and so you'd have the curriculum linked lessons as well. They'd have a load of meter reads, then we'd have a math lesson and plot all the reads and show that. But when the carbon reduction commitment came out and you got the incentives to put in AMRs, and there was a massive AMR rollout across the public sector, that was such a game changer, because in the local authority I worked for, every single school had an AMR, obviously loggers on gas, and they could now see what was happening to school at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, or what the close down procedure was like at 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And they then saw data about their own school that was showing their own behaviours, and that's where we made such savings. So we looked at data for gas, and we worked out that 20% of gas consumption across the school estate happened during And it was simply things weren't the boiler was operating in hand, or it was operating as though the school's occupied, but actually they didn't have any lettings in. Settings weren't correct. There was all sorts of issues coming up. So that was the biggie, to be able to look at your own consumption, look at where you've had best practice in your consumption. So maybe looking at base loads, for example. Let's find your own lowest base load. Let's see if we can recreate that, because a lot of, or what target should be working to, what should we be using? And no two schools are the same in the whole country. No two schools are operated the same way, and no two clients are the same. They work in similar industries. They might